All right, it's time for another redraft, and I think this one's a little bit more challenging because vast majority of these guys are still prospects, and then we're going to be comparing them to some maybe recently debuted big leaguers, and you got to weigh the two. It's the 2022 redraft here on the call up. I'm Aram, he's Jack, and I want to say this is something that is going to be very fluid in terms of if we do a redraft even 8 months from now of 2022 again, it's probably going to look a little different. And I think this year, especially, because so many of these prospects are either going to finally get a full big league season now that already got a small taste of it, or they're going to make their big league debut at some point this year, or they're going to get pushed to the upper levels finally if they were, matriculating a little bit more slowly. This is going to be a year of a lot of clarity, I think, on the 2022 class.
I think so because we're still a little bit removed from the Rule 5, although do they have to be added to the 40-man roster at the end of this season? All these guys are matriculating to the upper minors if they were high school guys. And if they were college guys, like we've had some get to the big leagues, but they were the quick movers. Like we're going to have a lot of guys get to the big leagues and try and, figure it out up there as a rookie. And it's a sink or swim thing as a rookie in Major League Baseball. And I feel like that's what made the 2020 redraft a heck of a lot easier because we
Yeah.
got the sink or swim of the rookie year and then are you for real or are you not of the sophomore year for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And we have multiple years of what are you doing at the highest level?
Yeah.
With this class, it's what have you done in high A? And then
Yep.
it's like, okay, what have you done in, 80 big league games or however many that you've gotten under your belt?
And is the chance that you're better than Zach Neto worth the
Right.
risk of the higher chance that you're probably worse than Zach Neto when we're talking about where these players are getting selected, right? Because, just for the sake of conversation here, right? Like a Chase DeLauder has a higher ceiling than Zach Neto.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a redraft, if I'm a team and, I'm taking the bird in hand probably, and I don't want to get ahead of it, but like
Yeah.
just for the sake of an example, an argument, like you're getting a three-war shortstop who could continue to get better himself
Yes.
in Zach Neto. So it becomes this juggle here of how risky do you want to be? Do you want to play the floor versus the ceiling and all of that stuff? But I think ultimately when we're talking about something like this, where the players who are, and Zach Neto's an established big leaguer, as crazy as that is to say, like
Right.
he's established himself as a good big leaguer already. Even if he doesn't improve at all, which I think he will, obviously, we really saw him take another step forward this past season. He's already established as a guy that's going to perform at the big league level and be worth his roster spot, right? At the very least.
For sure.
Um, that is hard to compare to then a Jacob Mizorowski or an Xavier Isaac or whatever, which is why I think this might be the perfect year right at this point right now in terms of challenging redrafts because I
For
don't think
sure.
you have that kind of dichotomy in a 2021 because there's going to be more guys that are closer to the big leagues or already got there, or a 2023 where you're just not really going to have anybody that's is a proven and high floor at this point as like a Zach Neto.
Right. I also think there's a conversation to be had at number one overall because we have a pair
Mhm.
of number one overall prospects on just baseball's top 100. Like, we've got guys that have been there, one that graduated and was underwhelming in the major leagues, and then another guy that hasn't gotten to the big leagues yet. So I even think that that's a conversation
Oh yeah.
versus 2023. It's like, okay, Skeens and then who? And then it probably just turns into, well, who's in the big leagues? And let's look at just baseball's top 100 right
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah. Yeah.
21, you're right. It's like, okay, let's just look at the WAR leaderboards. This is this hybrid of both that's going to make this hard, and we're probably going to get a lot wrong. I will say the 2021. I think we got one thing wrong, and we didn't draft Cade Smith, but Cade Smith wasn't drafted in that 5 round thing. So, like, I
Yeah.
feel like we escape that where it's like, okay, there are too many good big leaguers but we get to this point where it's like, where do I take Termar Johnson? Like there are so many tough questions.
The reliever stuff's crazy to me too because like Kate Smith was undrafted or non-drafted, and then we're talking about a guy that I mean just came out of nowhere really last year and kind of
Nowhere.
bounced around a little bit. So it's like, yeah, I mean at this point he's clearly one of the best relievers in baseball, but I think there's a valid like do it again before I
For
take
sure.
a position player kind of conversation here, which I think we're gonna have with a couple relievers here as well, and trying
Yeah.
to weigh those. I think you value relievers more than I do in this regard.
I
So it's going to be a fun conversation there.
I value
Um,
closers. I value the ninth inning, and I think that we have three guys that are going to throw the ninth inning in Major League Baseball this year on
yeah.
this list, and I might reach for them, but we'll have good dialogue around it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited for that. So, we're always gonna like. There's gonna be a player or two where you're like, oh, like he should have went. You might be right. Like it's really hard, honestly, especially when the drafts are. Yeah, we get to 20 rounds. Sometimes there's some sneaky guys later. So feel free to point them out to us if you think we missed somebody. It makes it fun, and then
For
we
sure.
we kick ourselves and we have a whole conversation about that too. But there's so many prospects I think here that even that we won't mention in this episode that I think could make a huge leap this season and even be in the conversation then, right? Like a Mason Barnett, when we talked about the system, which we were talking about the Royal system, but I mean, with a Mason Barnett now traded to the A's, like that's a guy that stuff wise, everything's above average.
Yep.
Command looks good. If he gets up to the big leagues and just looks solid, like that's a guy that could end up getting picked in a redraft in the back end of this thing here, where I think he could be a very solid number 4 starter. So like
Dude,
the guys can make that leap no problem, and all of a sudden, someone that we aren't even going to really mention in this episode could end up being a legit option and a guy that definitely gets taken in the top 30 when we do this again potentially next year in the off season.
dude, my like big board goes 46 deep, and 44 is Demetrio Crisantis, 45 is Nacho Alvarez in
Yeah.
Atlanta, and 46 is Henry Bolte with the A's. And like
Yeah.
those are three
Bolt's
guys
another
that
one.
all
If he has a good year in the upper levels, like he's a top 100 prospect consensus. So,
yeah. So it's like,
yeah.
but he's 46 right now on
Yeah.
this big board. But like that, we're doing it before the 25 season. So it is really interesting.
Let's jump into it. I think number one's already a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah. So the previous number one pick, or the original number one pick, was Jackson Holiday going to Baltimore for about a $500,000 under slot. And that's a great pick. You could stay where you are, but I'm actually going to go with Corey Acton, who was taken
Let's go.
275th overall out of the University of Georgia. It turns into a Holiday, I think, versus Roman Anthony conversation. And
Well,
Roman was the 79th overall pick by Boston.
I don't want to put the Corey Acton conversation to bed. The Little League guy, Little League star, by the way. I grew up playing with him in
Really?
Fort Lauderdale. But this guy is raking. I just want to give Corey a shout out real quick. Awesome dude. He's an older brother that I played high school ball with, but Corey would play up. So I played ball with both of them. That's how good Corey was. He's like 3 years younger than his brother. Corey's raking, and I think he was one of the best hitters in the Frontier League after getting released, and I think he won the batting title in Australia. So
Oh, wow.
shout out Corey Acton. He hit 333 for Canberra, and then is off to a really good start this year with Sydney. So yeah, there's so many cool places to play ball, man. He's got to
100%.
be having the best time ever. But sorry,
100%.
sorry, I digress. That one's your fault for bringing up Corey.
No doubt.
Um, I have a picture actually right here next to me of us on the field at the old Marlin Stadium because they let like our little league go there, and it's
Yeah.
me, him, two of our other like teammates, and Mike Jacobs,
Oh,
just
yeah.
standing at first base for the national anthem.
Yeah.
So
So was it pro player Joe Robbie or Sun Life when you were there?
at that time, I believe it was Dolphin Stadium.
What? Okay. I didn't know
um,
that was an option.
so this is a good like well, first of all, this really hammers home how the Orioles nailed this pick, right? And like
Yeah.
in hindsight, it's obvious, right? Like Holiday, you think, oh, well, of course they took Holiday. It was wide open, man. Like I think that we forget, and I think the further we get removed from this draft, it's easy to forget that Drew Jones very easily could have went number one. Tamar
Jamar.
Johnson was very frequently discussed at number one. Elijah Green was even discussed at number one. I, I mean, this was kind of a pick 'em situation here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure from like the few books that even offered like odds on it,
It was like plus
Holiday was like
800.
he was like a plus 700. Yeah, like
Yeah.
this was a very surprising pick to a lot of people. And no matter what with Holiday, like it already looks like they did a good job there, right? Like
Right.
he's looking like a comfortably better prospect and overall player than some of the other names there.
Right.
But the other guy is the top prospect in baseball currently who has a higher ceiling in Roman Anthony.
Yeah.
And you could have the floor ceiling conversation here, but is the floor of Jackson Holiday really much higher?
So it's weird because the Baltimore situation is pushing him to second base. And I think that that is subconsciously devaluing Holiday a little bit in our eyes. For the majority of other organizations, if they had the number one overall pick and they took Jackson Holiday, like he's the shortstop of the future. And I feel like Jackson Holiday, the shortstop, is not a slam dunk, but I think that that is a pick that I'm not losing sleep over a corner outfielder in Roman.
Well, Roman could
Like,
probably, I think Roman could play as good of a center as
as
potentially
Holiday could play
Jackson
short.
could play short. I think that might be because I agree with you. Like if Roman is like not able to play a passable center, which I think he can honestly play a pretty good center,
Yeah.
and Jackson's playing a passable shortstop, I get it. But I also think Jackson, like, if he was like, let's say with the White Sox or the Marlins or a lot of other organizations where he's the
Yeah.
shortstop of the future, he's gonna get all the reps in the world to be able to just get better there. And
Right.
I'm with you, like that over time I'll bet on that makeup and that athleticism to turn into a solid shortstop.
Yeah.
But assuming that they're both average or you hope a little bit above average defensively at those premium spots, the offensive upside I do think is pretty. And I know like within the prospect world, we always love the shiny new toy.
Yeah.
Um, I want to make it clear that it's not really that. It's the chance that Roman Anthony could hit 30, and I mean you have a similar approach, like benefits here. Both guys walk a ton. I know Jackson didn't walk a ton in his big league debut, but like who does?
Yeah.
Um, Roman will probably have some similar adjustments as well. Like, Jackson Holiday walked 22% of the time in AAA last year.
Yeah.
Uh, those things help a lot. But the batted ball profile, like Roman Anthony's got plus EVs or at least plus and some change, and Jackson Holiday's stretched a little thin, I think, to tap into above average power at this point.
Yeah. So I think we're talking about like let's envision the 90th percentile outcome. We're talking about an all-star second baseman versus an all-star corner outfielder, and the all-star second baseman's profile is hit 290 to 305, right? Walk a
Yep.
ton, so the OBP is around 400, but in terms of homer output, you're getting 20.
Yeah, you're hoping for like 20.
You're
Yeah.
hoping for 20. And then Roman, you're talking about a guy that'll hit 265 to 275, I think.
Yeah, he'll walk at a good clip.
Yeah, so it'll be a 390, but he'll slug over 500. He might
Yep.
slug close to 550. And again, we're talking about 90th percentile outcomes. So we're talking about a 30 homer guy that's playing a good corner outfield. So now that I think about it that way, give me Roman. I
And I
think
think,
that's probably the pick.
I think so, just because when you look at what he can still be too, and again, like I know Jackson can keep getting better and everything, but is he going to make this huge leap power wise? I don't necessarily know. Is like Roman Anthony's got the EVs already. It's just a matter of elevating a little bit more consistently. Bat to ball wise, like we've talked about it, the contact rates were not as good as really any clear cut plus hitter that we saw, really ever. But just because Holiday was hitting, man, like you couldn't argue with the numbers. He got slapped that 70 grade hit tool. And again, this is not to knock Holiday. He's going to be the very next pick, but it seems like the floor ceiling combination here with Roman is right there in terms of the floor being, I think, comparable to a Holiday when you look at the walking ability, how much he's cut the strikeout rate down, and in AAA, dude, he struck out as much as he walked in 35 games, just pretty remarkable. And he still snuck in 21 bags too. So I think Roman can be a superstar. And when you have that kind of upside, I'll lean into the plus power and plus raw.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with Roman. And number two is very easy there. Holiday is a clear cut number two.
Yeah, I think if Neto takes another step forward this year
Yeah.
and Holiday is fine, I think you could have a conversation. But you're hoping Jackson Holiday is kind of exactly what Neto was last year, right? Like I'm hoping this season that he hits, like we said, 20 home runs, You hope that the stolen bases can become a little bit more a part of his game. And I think if Jackson Holiday puts up a 115 to 120 WRC plus this season, plays some solid defense at second base, and it's a 3-win year, 3.5 win year, I think you're really excited about what he can, what he's trending towards moving
Yeah.
forward there. So I could hear a Zach Neto case just because he again plays shortstop, but I think Holiday could play shortstop at a similar clip to Neto, who did
Yeah.
improve a fair amount last year, but it's not like he's a wizard defensively. He did get a
Right.
lot better, and I think from the making the plays you need to make perspective, he does all that. Range
Yeah.
is not the best in the world, and I think that's kind of where Holiday would be as well as he gets to 23 years old.
Mhm.
So it's kind of comparable, but yeah, I'm going to play the upside of a Jackson Holiday.
Totally fair. Let's talk about the original second overall pick real quick. I think it's so funny that they signed identical bonuses at 1 and 2. Holiday signed for 8.19, which was, again, a little bit over $500,000 under slot and number one overall. Drew Jones got 8.19, which was exact slot value in number two. Drew Jones was the original second overall pick. Why hasn't it worked?
He just hasn't really adjusted, man. Like it's really interesting. We talk about the swing and everything. Like the swing mechanics were a huge concern as an amateur, and you'd think since
It'll change.
signing the deal
Yep.
to go pro, and it also shows you how close the number one overall pick situation was based on the bonuses. Like you'd think that after the adversity that he had faced at the lower levels, and I mean like getting really beat up at the complex and everything like that, that
Yeah.
you'd see a mechanical adjustment, but we haven't really seen it. And then he did kind of have some success, relatively speaking, in low A last year, and I wonder if that's almost going to make him not make those adjustments. Like he put the ball on the ground still at like a 60% clip. He can't pull the ball in the air because the mechanics are so disruptive. It's a really tough spot there where I would have expected to see a change by now, but the floor is a little bit bumped up for him because of how good he is defensively. But I mean, he's going to need to show a lot more offensively.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's jump to number three here. The original pick was Kumar Rocker. And this was a surprise after he failed his physical in the year prior with the Mets and he threw an indie ball. The Rangers underslotted him by over $2 million, $2.5 million. Slot was 9.6. He signed for 5.2
Yeah,
at number three overall with Texas. It's not a bad pick at all looking
no, it's
back on it.
pretty
And
great
Kumar
pick.
is going to go, for me, top five at least.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a better option here. Is this where you go, Neto?
It's where I'm leaning pretty heavily in that direction. I will say though, because we're not dealing with bonuses or anything here. If you told me it was like Neto full slot or Kumar Rocker with that amount of savings, like
Yeah.
I think I'm leaning towards Rocker and cooking later in the rounds. I don't know, but it really is a fantastic maneuver there, which shocked us at the time. And I mean, it's another reason why I think you got to start to believe in what they're doing, what they're building over there in Texas, and what Chris Young's got going on. It's just so funny when you're looking at the draft to see Tri-City Valley Cats
Yeah.
next to it. It's so wild, but great pick there. I think you can start to talk about a Noah Schultz here too,
Hmm.
just with the sheer ability that he has and everything that he brings to the table. But I think you got to take the big leaguer here, and something that I just continue to reiterate with a Zach Neto. This dude has not had a chance to develop at all.
Right.
Right. And so he's still developing before our eyes. And we don't really, of course, a bunch of every major leaguer is developing in one way or another
Yeah.
as they get experience at the big league level. But it's all relative, right? Like there's a certain point that you hit where a lot of the things that you figure out, like most big leaguers that we see, they figured out a lot of things about themselves throughout the minor leagues. And then you'll figure out the next phase of things at the big league level. Neto's kind of doing both of those things, right? Like he's having the big league acclimation and just getting used to playing the best talent in the world. But there's also just basic things that you're learning about yourself as a hitter and as a player and everything that come along with the several hundred games that most players play at the minor league level. That on top of that, we're talking about a guy that went to Campbell too, right? Like it's not like he was playing in the SEC every single day. So going from Campbell to then just what 40 something minor league games.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So he has 2023 as like the 84 game throw you in the big league situation. He plays pretty well. And then 2024, this past year, like that was, I think, the opportunity now where you could finally say he has almost a full season of games under his belt. Like that's the craziest part is even after 2023, where he played 84 games at the big league level, he still doesn't have a full big league season's worth of professional games under his belt. Even at that point, he's looking at what? 130
It was,
professional games
I think
entering this
so.
season. That's crazy. So you see him get better and better and better. And then this year, put up a 3.5 F war, 23 homers, 30 bags, making progress defensively at shortstop. I mean, I think you got to be really excited about where he's heading. And I lay all that out to say, I think he's still getting better. Like, I think he's
Yeah.
going to take another step forward next year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 4-win player. And that's why I think you can make the case that, he could go a little bit earlier, but I think it would be a little too harsh and reactionary on Jackson Holiday's struggles to do that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And like I will just say, like for the sake of acknowledging how early we're doing this, 6 months ago when Neto had the leg kick, he's going 6, 7 picks later,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
he
probably.
ditches the leg kick, and now we're talking about him at 3 instead of 7 or 8. So, like, that's how young we are in the development of all of these guys.
Yeah.
So just acknowledge that. And it's like, Neto, you mentioned those improvements. He's nowhere close to a finished product, yet we've seen the improvements enough to bump him from 13 to 8 to 3, which is really cool.
To see him doing that at the big league level. And that's a perfect example of just kind of learning more about yourself, right? Because that's the big league wake up call that you're going to have. But maybe he would have had that wake up call in AAA or something over a course of a full season where certain guys throw off his timing, but maybe not. And that's something that just more experience, he's able to do that. And by eliminating that, he nearly doubled his walk rate in the second half because I think he was able to see the ball earlier, feel like he was more consistently on time, and guys were not able to throw him out of his rhythm nearly as easily. 125 WRC plus over the second half. Like I will continue to say he's one of the most underrated players in baseball, and I'm looking forward to what he's going to do this year.
For sure. Number 4, the original pick was Tamar Johnson, and it's not a bad pick by any stretch for
No,
Pittsburgh.
especially when we talk about some of the names coming up later.
Yeah, like all in all, it looks like they have a guy that is a future big leaguer and a
Mm-hmm.
future, possible impact player at the big league level. We just got to figure out what the identity of Tamar Johnson is, and it feels like he's got a little bit more clarity on that going into 25, based on when we talked to him during the Premier 12 thing in Tokyo. Like he seems like he is supremely confident in himself, which is
Yeah,
really important, and B, confident in like how he can progress to a finished product of Tamar Johnson, which I think is important.
I would love for him to just lean into being an athletic Max Muncy.
Yeah.
Um, like I just don't think the hit tool is ever going to be better than
What it was
average. I don't
lauded
even know if
as.
it's necessarily going to be average, right? But the approach is elite. You have crazy bat speed. I'm be a three true outcome guy that is athletic. That
Yeah.
plays. That's fun.
Yeah.
I would be in on that. But I think last year we kind of saw him trying to balance the two, and he did make progress bat to ball wise, but what cost? So
Yep.
I'm excited to see how he puts things together this year and takes that next step. And again, I agree, not a bad pick at all. But given that we have the benefit of picking from everyone else,
Hmm.
probably going to go in another direction here.
Pitchers.
Yeah, it's I think it's which is crazy because we got guys like Dalton Rushing available, Chase DeLauder, but I think you got to go with one of two pitchers.
Yes. The two options are Schultz and Rocker. Noah Schultz was originally 26th. Rocker was third. We talked about him. Schultz has yet to get to the big leagues. We know Rocker's slider is going to play at the big league level, and it's going to be one of the better sliders in Major League Baseball, I think.
I,
But
I'll tell you what,
yeah,
though, I think Noah Schultz is. We almost pretty much know that slider is going to play at the big league. And I
yeah,
hate saying that for guys that have not got to the big leagues, but
right.
just fire up the tape, dude. Watch that 6'9" freak show, rip a slider, and tell me it's not working at the big league level.
Yeah. Yeah. I lean Schultz here just barely. And I do give Rocker a bump because he's proven to be successful at the big leagues and just, a couple of starts at the end of the year. But Schultz, like, I view Rocker as a high end 2 at his best outcome. Schultz is like actually one of the few pitching prospects that can be an ace
Yep.
in Major League Baseball, and
Yep.
he's got one of the better lefty in baseball upside. Like I think I'm not saying that he's going to reach like that best left-hander in baseball thing because Skubal's going to be good for a very long
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
but I do think that this guy is clear cut the best left handed pitching prospect in minor league baseball right now. And he gets up and immediately looks like one of the more coveted left handers in Major League Baseball.
And I think the left-handed part actually matters here, right? I think it's a
I think so.
separator because we talk about it like it was shocking to me when you saw Max Fried getting the biggest deal of a left-handed pitcher like ever, right? I don't, has
Yeah.
a left-handed pitcher ever gotten even north of 200? What was Kershaw's exact number? I'm trying to remember, but I forget what the exact like like marker was where it's like no left-handed pitcher had gotten more than this number. I know it's obviously whatever Fried got, but it was significantly more than I think the next highest contract from a left-handed pitcher. But it just shows you like it's hard to find that clear cut, absolutely consistently dominant left-hander, and that's something that I think is a big separator. The other thing that's interesting to me too, and I'm curious what you think about this. I value success, like proven success at the major league level. Obviously, it's important for both hitters and pitchers, but a lot more for hitters than pitchers. Because I
Yeah.
think it's not tried and true every single time, right? Things happen, but you can look at the guy's stuff and
Yeah.
say, there's a very good chance nobody can hit that, right? Like
Yeah.
even big league hitters are going to struggle with those characteristics at that velocity, from that frame, and you feel pretty good about it, right? Like that's why when I
Yeah.
looked at Kumar Rocker, even before he made his big league debut, we had a conversation like, is that an 80 grade slider? If it's an 80
Yeah.
grade slider, I'm damn confident that it's going to dominate at the big league level. And we ended up going with a 70 on it, but like it played well at the big league level. I think
Yeah.
that's
I
that's something that's interesting to me.
Well, and I would say, like, you find comparable data points. Like, that's the thing. You can pretty much plot everything about a certain pitch and you can compare it to the big leagues as opposed to a hitter where you're seeing a different guy and a different arsenal every single time and it's way more results oriented. Pitching, I do think, like, a large part of prospect value should be results. Like you have to have a decent ERA, right? You have to strike out a bunch of guys, but you can see a data point. You can get a much better picture of what they can be at the big leagues as opposed to, oh, this guy's 90th percentile exit velocity is this. Okay, but like how much is he whiffing, right? There are so many
Yeah.
more ingredients that go into the cake as opposed to this guy has a fastball that is comparable to this guy at the major league level. You assume if command holds that it's going to perform like that.
100%. And it's also, can he produce those batted ball outcomes against better pitching? Like, yeah, those are
Yeah,
great markers, but you can only compare him relative to other double A hitters because that's what he's facing. You
right.
can't then apply that to the big leagues. Pitcher, he's battling himself, right? It's
Yeah.
what stuff can you throw from your hand and what does it look like? So the thing that separates Schultz here too for me is the command. The fact that he doesn't walk anybody is why I think he's the pick here because that really does elevate the floor side of things too. So Schultz is the pick at 4.
Cool. Five, is this where we go rocker?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bat versus arm, conversation here, I guess. If you wanted to take a chance on a Delauder, I guess, but like if you're opposed to pitchers because they all get hurt, then you can't really take Chase Delauder as the pivot pick
Right.
there, right? So
Right.
and rushing is great, but I
He's not Delauder when it comes to offensive ceiling, I don't think.
no, and Rocker, like, dude, with what he looks like coming off of that surgery now. And like you said, the slider, the two fastballs, the big pitcher's body. I lean towards a guy that I think is a rookie of the year candidate this year and a damn good one.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And like you just know that slider's going to play as opposed to Delauder, like he might play 30 games.
Yeah,
It's just crazy. And
and
I feel bad saying it, but he hasn't proven otherwise yet.
no, and not even in college because their season was like 30 games.
Right.
So at
Well,
James
and he got
Madison,
hurt in his draft year.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
can't like it's 3 consecutive years of like, are you going to stay healthy?
yeah, yeah. I think you got to go with the guy that's a big league ready starter right now, and
Yeah.
with the characteristics of both fastballs too, where you can kind of get the heavier and then also gets ride from that release point that he's found that's more horizontal and like a little bit more out there. I love what he's got going on. Rocker, you hope he's closer to the 2, but I have no doubt in my mind that at the very least he's a solid big league starter.
Yep. Original pick at 5 was Elijah Green by Washington. Trivia time. What is his career K rate in minor league baseball?
Oh gosh. It stinks because I want him to be good so bad. He seems like such a
Hmm.
fun player. Like he could be so exciting. Uh I'm gonna say 40 45%.
42.8%, a 43% career K rate. This year in low A, 106 games at a 44% K rate.
Yeah, well there's that, so we don't even need to there's no other conversation. That's the problem.
Yes.
That's the only problem, really. Like great athlete. The EVs are outrageous. Like
Yeah.
and it gets like I wouldn't say swept under the rug because it has to be when you're not hitting the ball, but like his raw power is damn near 80. Like when he's running into balls, he's putting up some of the highest EVs in pro ball. But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter when you're doing it, once every few games.
Exactly. So that was the top 5. Again, we just went the redraft: Roman, Holiday, Neto, Schultz, Rocker. We're going to get to 6 in a moment. Before that, brief break. Let's talk 6. And now we get into that wave of bats, I think, where we talk about a DeLauder and a Rushing. The original pick at 6 was Jacob Berry. Aram, your thoughts?
I think we keep the pick.
Okay. Word. DH?
I mean, dude, that I'll never forget that live stream. We were doing that,
Yeah.
and I was like, there's no way they go with this pick. There's no way they go with this pick." It was one of those things where I think you could just, not even with the benefit of hindsight, it's kind of gone. I thought the bat would be better than it's been. He did
Yeah.
show some better things last year, but you were counting so much on the bat, right away, where like you're it was very far fetched that he would ever be able to play third. So you're assuming it's first base or like a bad to mediocre corner outfield. Okay, this guy really needs to hit. Well, the exit velocities were slightly above average in college. So like, okay, then he really needs to hit for average, and we're gonna hope he taps into every ounce of the power. Like it was such a weird profile that it wasn't just the Marlins either, too. Like a lot of outlets and teams and whatever had him as a consensus top 10 pick. I never understood it. Like that was always bizarre to me. But anyways, you can go a few different directions here, dude. Because rushing, now you have the versatility side of things too, where
Mhm.
it's like, okay, like maybe he can survive in left, but I imagine we're drafting from a blank organization. You're taking the catcher, right? Like you're taking a Dalton Rushing, the catcher, who is going to hit for above average power, walk, and just continues to put up numbers.
Yeah.
So it's the catcher, though the left field thing is just nice to know now. Only
Yeah.
helps his case. DeLauder is the highest ceiling player available here, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And like, there's a scenario where it's like you kick yourself and you're like, man, why didn't we take DeLauder? He's one of the best hitters, corner outfielders in baseball. Like, that's a scenario. That's a real scenario. That's the only difference. Is like I don't think there's a scenario where you're like, why didn't we take Rushing? He's one of the best catchers in baseball. I think why didn't we take Rushing? He's a really good catcher and he has been for a decade now. Is very possible.
Yeah.
But the only player where I see it where it's like, oh man, we passed on a perennial all star would be if you're passing on Chase DeLauder at this point. But it might be okay to do that considering there's also the scenario where it's, oh my gosh, we had a high probability big leaguer right in our hands and we took the guy who can't stay on the field at all.
Yeah, so that's why I lean Rushing. Um, I'm terrified of guys that are unavailable at this high of a pick. And like Delauder, the promise is awesome, but what's the likelihood that he turns into Tyler O'Neill? Like pretty high. And Tyler O'Neill's a good player, but Tyler O'Neill could be a hell of a lot better than he actually is if he actually stayed on the field and played 150 games in a given season. If he played 140 in each of the last 6 years, O'Neill is signing for 2-3x what he just signed
Yeah,
for with Baltimore.
no doubt. No
And
doubt.
like I could see that happening with DeLauder, where it's such a fun product when he's on the field, but like, dude, I don't want it to be Royce Lewis. And frankly, like Royce Lewis is not going one in a redraft there. You know what I mean? Like
No, you know what was
obviously,
jarring to me when we were doing our top tens for just baseball? or top 10 by position for the big leagues. And like Royce is not in there and not even really close for
No,
third
I don't
base.
think so. And like at the end of this year, if he plays 135, 140 games, we could be saying, how the hell did we not have Royce Lewis in the top 10 third baseman in Major League Baseball? It's because he hasn't played
I'll take my
baseball.
chances. Yeah,
Yeah.
like him playing would be the outlier. And
Yeah.
like that's the unfortunate reality of it. Him playing 100 games would be the outlier, and with DeLauder, him playing 100 plus games would
Be
be
the
the
outlier.
outlier. And I hope that's the outlier, but I'm also okay as an organization saying, "Hey, we didn't want to roll the dice on an outlier outcome."
Yeah.
I think that's fair. So, and with a skill set that rushing brings, with a sub 20% chase rate, elevating the ball consistently, um, you don't have that at catcher very often. Like that's not a very common profile from catchers where they're patient, they're grinding out ABs, and hitting balls at like the right angles, right? Like, because a Cal
Right.
Raleigh, like he's gonna strike out a ton.
Yeah.
He's not gonna walk, I don't think, as much, but he's gonna hit a ton of home runs and be an elite defender. You're not gonna get as elite of the defensive side of things, but usually a lot of the like offensive oriented catchers, I feel like just don't walk. I think of like a Yiner Diaz, a Salvador
Right.
Perez. Like
Right.
I feel like a lot of those guys don't really walk. Um, Will Smith in the past didn't really walk a ton, but this is a really well-rounded profile. And now that the glove has come along quite a bit, and he's put a lot of focus into how he calls a game and does things back there, it's such an important position. Give me Dalton Rushing.
Cool. So do we take DeLauder at 7 then?
A lot of the things I just said could be applicable, minus the elevating consistently to Drake Baldwin too. And
Yeah.
I really do like Drake Baldwin, but I also think that there's a point where it's like, okay, DeLauder, this dude's 6'4", 230, a plus runner with plus plate discipline, has produced plus contact rates and
Yeah.
plus EVs as a pro. Like this guy on in sheer ability has number one prospect in baseball upside. It won't happen because he'll get to the big leagues before that could even happen because he's
Right.
been hurt so much. But
Right.
like it really is like 60s. If you look at the scouting grade for him, aside from defense, which still could be above average or at least
Yeah.
average, it's 60s across the board for us.
Yeah.
So like that might be where I roll the dice, considering Baldwin, as awesome as he was, this was like kind of the breakout year for him.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think the promise can't fall any further than this. And I look at other guys like Drake Baldwin should be in that cut, but I also this is where I start to entertain Brooks Lee as well. But if I'm docking DeLauder for unavailability, how can I prop up Brooks Lee? You know what I mean?
Especially with less upside.
Yeah. So it's like this is I think where I go the upside and 7. If I take a Drake Baldwin, I start to kick myself if DeLauder's awesome.
Yep.
Versus if I take Rushing, like I do think Rushing and Baldwin are in different tiers right now.
Well, because you could dream on 30 with rushing, and I think with Baldwin, it's a little bit harder to
It's a
picture that.
well-rounded offensive game and a
Yeah.
decent defensive game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we do go DeLauder here. The original pick at 7 was Cade Horton by the Cubs. And
Great
this
pick.
was a fun one, man. It was $1.3 million under slot. I know MLB.com had him as their 24 guy on their big board, and he went at 7. It was a great find by Chicago. I worry, and this is why I'm not touching Cade in the first 15 or so picks. I worry about the velo dip and I worry about the shoulder issue in 2024.
Yeah, they were pretty close to their vest about it, and we just not seeing him at all the rest of the year, and just the way that things were kind of hush hush. It usually doesn't bode that well, and he's already had TJ with the shoulder issue now. Like there's definitely some wrinkles to it, and some
Yeah.
concern there. But in terms of the pick, great pick, save the money there, and he was for a while looking like he was tracking towards being arguably in that top pitching prospect in baseball conversation until he went down. So definitely still a great prospect and a clear cut top 100 guy. But yeah, there's definitely some concern with the injury. So
Yeah.
there we go with DeLauder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the pick at 7. By the way, they use those Horton savings to go overpay for Jackson Ferris later. The
Yeah,
Cubs did really well in this
really well.
22 draft.
Yep.
Number 8, the original pick was Brooks Lee, and I think we can have that conversation about staying where it is. Brooks Lee was a good pick, and he's been good when he's been on the field. He looked decent everywhere you put him defensively in the minor leagues, and when he got to the big leagues, it wasn't good offensively, but you know that the floor is going to be there. I feel like problem is if you're talking about a high floor big leaguer, you got to play a lot, and
Yeah.
he hasn't played a lot in professional baseball. Who else jumps into the conversation here? I know Baldwin is a guy that is in the conversation, but is it like does a Cole Young enter the fold here too?
Well, and I think the only reason why Brooks Lee was available for the Twins at 8 was that injury concern, right? Like that he could have been a top 3 pick as well, and was even a
Yeah,
consideration at number 1 for a point in time. And then, I think there were some concerns with his back and other issues that he's had. He's had a history of being beat up. So that was the risk that was kind of taken there. But um, I think so. So Baldwin's off the board now or still on the
no,
board?
Baldwin's on the board.
Okay. I think Baldwin just the position's pretty important. Obviously, hits the living crap out of the ball. The defense has gotten to a point where I think it's at least average.
Yeah,
You have, I think Cole Young is interesting for sure, but at that point, I think I'd almost just prefer Brooks Lee, who is a switch hitter, and I think Cole Young and Brooks Lee do a lot of the same things.
yeah,
Um, Baldwin, I just think as a catcher with plus EVs and an approach that really came along, left-handed hitter as well. Like there's a lot to like there as he continues to just I think put together his entire game and played like legit 100. I think he played like 160 games this year between the AAA season or double AAA season, Arizona Fall League, and then the Premier 12.
mhm,
But I think you could go there. Sproat, I think, is even worth a consideration here off of
really.
sheer stuff and just the front line upside that he has.
Yeah,
I would still have Cole Young, I think, a notch below just because I think Brooks Lee does a lot of the same things.
yeah, fair. Okay, let's go Baldwin here at 8, and then I think we entertain that next tier of Lee, Young. I could have the Sproat conversation. There are a couple other guys as well at 9. The original pick at 9 was Gavin Cross by Kansas City. It started very poorly. It's gotten better since. Cross is not a guy that I think is going to go in the first round of this. Like as we do 30 picks, he's not going to go in that top 30. But he's a guy that could be a toolsy big league outfield option for Kansas City in due time.
Yeah, I think you could be like a bulk platoon guy who's speedy and runs into some homers, but no, I don't love the mechanics. Still challenges the velo. He also has been banged up. Uh, I've never been the biggest Gavin Cross guy, but he has taken he did take a step in the right direction last year, which was nice to see. And yeah, I think he's going to be a big leaguer for them, and hopefully can grab onto the bulk platoon. But yeah, probably not a guy that ends up going in the first round here.
Right.
I I lean. I'll generally like to lean towards the bat, but I also really do like what Brandon Sproat can bring to the table here when we're talking about. I know that the AAA sample wasn't great. We're talking about arguably a 70 fastball.
Yeah.
Touches 102. The changeup is legitimately the closest thing I've seen in the minor leagues to that Paul Skeens splinker.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like it really is the closest thing. And he's throwing it at like 88 to 92 with some
Yeah.
similar shape. And then he's got a pretty good slider that's above average and at least an average curveball. The command has always been the question. And I think that's where we have the conversation of like how much did Sproat hedge the command concern for you last year? And how much is it still there, I guess, going into 2025? Because
Honestly,
he
yeah.
did honestly do a pretty good job of cutting the walk rate.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have too many questions about it. Like in Brooklyn, he was walking the world. It was 16 and 25 and 2/3. But then he goes to Binghamton and he somehow settles in. It was 15 walks and 62 and a third. And then he goes to Syracuse and he was hit decently hard, but that didn't result in this insane elevated walk rate. Like he walked 41, 42 guys in 116 innings this year. The fact that he threw 116 innings in 2024 is also a bonus to me because this is not a guy that is being babied and, oh, he started 23 games, but it only went 90 innings because he was going 3, 4 innings at a time. Like, Sproat can stretch out to 6 or 7. The stuff can stay strong through
Hmm.
6 or 7 innings. And he didn't lose the command like I feel like we saw in spurts at Florida. And then we also saw at the very, very beginning of 2024. Like, I was very encouraged by Sproat, and I'm willing to go Sproat at 9 here, just because like I do see that frontline starter ability, as opposed to some of the other arms that are on the board for me.
And Quinn Matthews struggling in AAA at the end of the year almost makes
Hmm.
me feel better about Sproat
For
struggling
sure.
in
For
AAA, right?
sure. Like these guys might have just been tired, man. Like Sproat threw 106 innings at Florida in 23, or 22, pardon. Um, Although Sproat, that's right, he didn't sign in 22. He went back to UF. So
Oh,
can we draft him?
oh, that's a good point. We can't draft him. Great,
We
great
can't
Sprout
draft him.
conversation, but yeah, he didn't sign.
Yeah.
Third round pick, 90th overall, but he did not sign. Good
I
catch.
hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the useless Sprout conversation. I think I would have taken him here though, right? For
Yeah.
that, just for the sake of argument there, but it does make things easier. Um, but a lot of the same conversation we had, can you apply it not nearly to the same degree, but can you apply it enough to Jacob Mizorowski and what he showed out of the pen to then say I'm taking that guy over Brooks Lee?
I would rather take Brooks Lee over a reliever.
Yeah, I was disappointed in what we saw from Lee at the big league level, but I also think he was hurt and they
Yeah.
were moving him all over the diamond. And to your point, like the fact that he can play all over the diamond, even if he stalls out and he's a 105 WRC plus guy in perpetuity, the fact that he can do that as a switch hitter at every position, like if that's what the 40th percentile outcome is or whatever 50th, like that's still pretty darn good. Um,
Yeah.
I'm cool with Brooks Lee here. It's just annoying that the injuries get in the way here because it's annoying for any player, but
Mhm.
it makes it so frustrating for me with a guy like this, which you alluded to earlier, where it's like high floor, does so many things well. That guy can't be injury prone. It drives me nuts, but I still think he's the pick here. I agree.
Cool. All right. So now we move to 10, and Sproat is not available. The original pick at 10 was Gabriel Hughes by Colorado, the right-hander out of Gonzaga. Hughes has been okay in minor league baseball, but he got TJ right away, so it's
Mhm.
like we really haven't seen too much of Gabriel Hughes at this point. He's not going in this first round
No.
redraft.
No, but I got some hope. I was able to get a little bit of info on some backfield games that he was thrown prior to the fall league and a little bit after, and it looked better than it looked in the fall league. I think the fall league just kind of caught him off guard a little bit. I imagine just not
Yeah,
pitching for so long and then having to pitch in that environment was not easy. But
I'm
I
sure.
think there's still a big league arm there, one way or another. Hopefully he can get himself right next year. But yeah, just kind of tough circumstances for him. I didn't hate the pick
Yeah.
at the time. I did, especially with the Rockies who just need to get any arms they can.
Well, and it's
Uh,
like sinker slider in that ballpark is
yeah,
you can do
y-
that.
yeah, and you hope he can, at least be an innings eater or at least a long guy at the very worst. But is this is where I think you can go a lot of directions, man.
Yeah.
Like it's wide open. I like Cole Young for sure, but Mizorowski obviously has a chance to be special.
Yeah.
Uh, Xavier Isaac is big power.
Yeah.
Cade Horton was in the conversation for top pitching prospect in baseball. Now he's been very banged up, and we haven't seen him throw, so you have to see what that looks like. But there's a world where he comes back, and he would have been picked already at this point if he looks like he looks before. So
So
where are you
I
at?
I'm ready to have this conversation now. Who do you value higher now? Cade Horton off of injury or a guy that's going to be a closer in Major League Baseball and throw 105 miles an hour in Ben Joyce. Like, I do entertain Joyce because he throws 105 and because, I may be unfairly high on Joyce going into 25, but I saw a guy that got that confidence that he had at Tennessee and was box office for an inning.
For
Like,
sure. I just wish he missed more bats.
I know, but 105 is 105, and I feel like he's going to find the mitt a little bit more and find fewer barrels this year. And there's really no, true empirical evidence that I have there, but I just feel like it's really a confidence thing for him. And how can you not be super confident after what we saw for the final, month and a half, 2 months of the big league season last
I
year
mean,
with Joyce?
yeah, he was awesome.
He was gross.
What's the injury situation with Joyce too? He had shoulder he had Tommy John, and then I think he had shoulder inflammation to
Impingement.
close out last year.
Yeah, it was a shoulder impingement.
That's the thing, like guy that throws that hard and already has had some, and he had a stress fracture in his elbow when he was at Walter State Community College too.
Yeah.
I like he might just throw his arm off.
He might, but it's so fun.
It's so fun. No, you sold me on it. Like the excitement around him is just reliever who still might end up like
Yeah.
Mizorowski. How much lower is the ceiling for you of a Mizorowski, if at all?
Not
And
much
also
lower. Not
he's yet
much
to deal
lower.
with any issues health
Yeah,
wise.
and I also feel like it's a hybrid of the Horton versus Joyce conversation.
Hmm.
So like might as well just go Mizorowski here.
I think so. You're getting an outlier fastball, and
Yeah.
outlier gets thrown out way too much. This is an outlier fastball. We've talked about it. You got to see it in real time. And it's like
Yeah.
the only time that you were actively sending me TrackMan data during one of your games. Like
Yeah.
Mizorowski is outlier with the fastball. That's going to help. And I think as he just fills out and matures, he could start sitting triple digits too. I all the reasons that you said Ben Joyce, I think we go Mizorowski,
Cool.
and there's always still a little bit of a chance that he could start.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. All right, let's go to 11 here, and we'll pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
First 10 are always going to take you a little bit longer. Um, Okay, 11, the original pick, as I pull up the draft tracker again, Kevin Parada by the New York Mets. It didn't work, man. It was an offensive minded catcher that they overslotted. Slot was 4-8. He got 5. Um, what's the issue? Like
A lot
it
of
was
swing and miss, and he's not really a good defensive catcher. So
well,
and
and
he chases more than 30% of the time.
it's crazy. Is he going to make the big leagues? Like, let's do this now because Cartaya. I think Cartaya might just be the backup if Minnesota
Cartaya
can
will
move
make it.
off Christian Vasquez.
I think there's a very real scenario, Kevin Parada, and I hope I'm wrong, obviously, but
Yeah,
I just don't see how he gets there right now because there's no defensive value.
yeah,
It would be by being like a power hitting first base DH guy, but if you're chasing north of 30% of the time and posting below average contact rates, the only thing that he has is raw power.
yeah,
That's gonna be hard, man.
yeah. I'm with you. Okay, where do we go at 11? The names that we've mentioned at this point that are still on the board: Cole Young, Cade Horton, Ben Joyce, Xavier Isaac.
This might be the Cole Young spot, especially with the way he finished the year. I don't
Yeah,
love where his swing is at. Which is weird, like to say when he obviously had a good finish to the year. I think when we talked about it with the Mariners
right.
organization, like when we did the Mariners farm system, where the way he sets up his hands and where he's at and how he moves, like it makes it really hard to be able to turn the barrel in time for velo, especially in the upper third, and he got blown up by that stuff. But he
Yeah,
also has the approach to accommodate that. Didn't chase anything at the top part of the zone, and you have to really execute in the top third to get him out. He can always make some adjustments from there too. Walking is nearly as much as he struck out as a pro. He steals a fair amount of bags. He could be a little bit more efficient in that regard, but ton of doubles, and I think can get by it short. I, Cole Young's probably the safest pick here,
hmm
but you could also go with a Cade Horton, um, or a Jackson Ferris, even I think after what he did last year.
I sound like a broken record, but the injury is holding me off from Cade Horton. I'd rather just take the guy that can play short.
Yep, yeah, or a
So
really good second base.
Yeah, so let's go Cole Young at
Cole
11.
Yang.
Cole Yang, Eric Yang, Cole Young. Number 12, Detroit took Jace Young out of Texas Tech, and I really don't mind this pick whatsoever. I think Young is probably going to fall into the 20s here, but they found a guy that is going to be a big league, probably platoon bat for them for
Hmm.
quite a bit. The question is lack of defensive value. Where does he play defensively? And
Yeah.
after signing Glaber, you assume that he'll take some third base reps. Like, he's not going to DH because Carey's going to DH.
Maybe a little first.
Maybe a little first, but Colt Keith is another lefty
Oh yeah.
hitting first
True.
baseman, and they're moving Keith over there. Like, you run out of space for Jace Young, and he may turn into a bench bat that plays a little bit more than your typical bench bat, which I don't love at 12. I like it
No.
at 26, 27. I don't like it at 12.
And you could say, oh, he's a victim of the circumstance. If he was
Mm,
showing a little bit more, I think he'd have a clear spot there, and they
I don't
probably
think they
aren't
signed Glaber if he's showing a bit
exactly.
more.
The challenge is he elevates, he hits the ball at good angles, but the EVs are average,
Yeah.
slightly above. So he's really got to, find the barrel consistently. And those like outslug the EV guys generally need to be like plus with the barrel control. So he's
Yeah.
kind of a tweener. I agree with you. I think he's still gonna have a nice career and be a decent piece, but it might be more of that platoon piece that if he had more defensive value, I'd feel a lot better about. So this is why I really like what Jackson Ferris did last year. And I
Hmm.
think he could be a big riser in the prospect realm like this season. And he's a guy that entered our top 100 this past year. I mean, we're talking about a 6'4 lefty with a plus fastball slider combination. Found a curveball like consistency there a little bit. I think you could go that route. You could be betting on a Jet Williams bounce back.
Hmm.
I don't know. There's a few different ways you could go about it.
It's funny to pose it, but I think we can get it down to Jackson Ferris versus Kate Horton at 12, which is like, sorry, Cubs fans.
That is a really funny. That is mean. Um, I'm gonna probably. That's hard. That's hard. Like I want to remind. Like we forget so quickly, right? Like
How
we
good
always
Kate
love.
was.
It's a what have you been doing for me lately?
For
Sport.
sure.
This guy had a 2.65 in 2023. Like a
Yeah.
2.65 in 88
88
innings.
innings or something? Yeah.
Yeah, he struck out nearly 12 per nine and walked less than 3 per nine. And then at the start of this year, 4 starts in Double A. Just made mincemeat of competition. Had a 1.1 ERA before the arm started to go on him a little bit. I think we go Horton here. It was a I'm not a doctor. I don't
Mhm.
know what the exact issue was. Is a subscapular issue. It sounds like
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
sound
too
good.
medically based for me. Yeah.
Subscap. Oh yeah, that's usually where it kills. Yeah, that's a bad spot. Don't love that spot. Um, I it wiped out his season. I don't know, but like if he's anything like he's been,
Yeah.
he's in a really good spot. And the arsenal across the board is what I really like with him. Where you've got the cut ride fastball, that slider that's gross. Then he found that changeup with the Vulcan grip, and he's got a curveball as well, and he has consistently thrown strikes.
Yeah.
I'm stuck. I don't know.
I'll lean Horton just because of you're right, like the reminder of what he did, and you're hoping that he can come back. But I do want to mention that Jackson Ferris this year, 126 and two-thirds innings as a 20-year-old between high A and double A, and he got better when he got to double A. High A, 98 innings, he K'd 119 and at a 3.4, and then he finishes the year in double A Tulsa. Command issues snuck in, but he still threw to a 2.5 ERA in 28 innings.
Mm.
Like,
And that's a
he threw
lefty.
that's a lefty that threw 127 innings as a 20-year-old.
Whew. Yeah, that is tough.
I'll go Horton here if we go Ferris at 13.
Deal.
Okay. So Horton at 12, Ferris at 13. The original pick at 13 was Zach Neto. He's long gone. So Angels get Jackson Ferris. 14. The original pick was Jet Williams. We could very well stay with Jet
Yeah.
Williams, but Xavier Isaac is still on the board.
And did we end up taking your boy Ben Joyce? Not yet.
No, we
So
haven't yet.
he's still there too. Justin Crawford can be discussed there if you're a believer. Thomas Harrington is interesting, but probably just not enough impact yet.
Your guy Dana.
Caden Dana, the GOAT.
Dana. Drew Thorpe could also be discussed. Zebby Matthews could be discussed.
Hmm. I feel like it's kind of an Isaac Jet Williams conversation here too.
Yeah.
And both kind of like Xavier Isaac swinging and missing in double A at like a pretty high clip. Like
Yeah.
it's not like a red flag, but it did slow the hype train a little bit.
Yeah.
Jet Williams' injuries have absolutely slowed the hype train a little bit. Where are you leaning?
I lean Joyce. Like Joyce was higher on my big board.
Yeah.
Joyce was 11 on my big board. Just because I think you're getting a closer, and if you're worried about the shoulder impingement, I totally understand that. But he throws 105.
Well, let's think about it this way. If Ben Joyce was available on the trade market and the Angels are about to lose 120 games.
Yeah. 5 years of control. Are we factoring in years of control, or is it just in a vacuum? Who would you
No,
rather
I think
have
you're
in this?
factoring in years of control.
Okay.
You can have because you're gonna have more years of control of the prospect in theory. Um, is Jet Williams? Are the Mets parting with Jet Williams for Ben Joyce?
I think they could.
And like, it's obviously the Rays, so like it's not like put the Rays cap on, but like, is an organization trading Xavier Isaac for a Ben Joyce?
If I'm Tampa, no, but like any
Yeah,
other organization, I think you might because it's a first base prospect that showed some deficiencies in
and
Double A, and you've got a closer with a 2 ERA that again throw like I keep revisiting throws 105.
it throws 105. Yeah, the shoulder impingement thing kills
It
me.
scares you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
but these are all prospects now that are a little bit like all have some warts to it,
Yeah,
right?
I lean
Ah,
Jet over Isaac personally.
because the speed.
Speed, defense, defensive versatility now too. He could play on the infield or in the outfield like that.
The
That
approach,
intrigues
the
me.
approach helps a lot too.
The approach really helps. Like I think it's a bit more well-rounded of a game. He's got a much higher floor than Isaac does, but Isaac could hit 40 homers in the big leagues if it all clicks.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would trade Jet for him. I think I could, if you had a really good year out of
Joyce,
Joyce, I think I could trade a first base prospect for him
yeah.
if I really felt like he could put us over the top. I like the Jet pick here.
So it sounds like we just stacked Jet, Joyce, Isaac at 14, 15, 16.
Yep, I'm cool with that.
You're cool with that? Okay. So if we go Jet at 14, Ben Joyce at 15, Xavier Isaac at 16, that replaces Jet Williams, who actually stays
Yeah.
put. I think first time in these two
Yeah,
redrafts
I
that
don't
we've
think we've
actually
had
had guys stay put.
a stay put pick.
No, it's been good. So Jet Williams, congratulations, you're still with the Mets. Ben Joyce replaces Dylan Lesko, and that like he just wasn't throwing. It wasn't working in Fort Wayne this year, and it didn't make any sense. And like hopefully he finds new rhythm in Tampa. I'm very excited to see what Lesko can do in
The
25.
stuff is too good, man. And what he can do to
Yeah.
the baseball from like just the way it spins off his fingers, like he's got crazy stuff. Just really hope he can find the zone.
Yeah. And then Isaac replaces Chase DeLauter at 16, and DeLauter went at number 7. We are going to finish the first round, the top 30 picks. But before that, one more quick break. All right. 14, 15, 16 was Jet, Joyce, Isaac. Now we get to 17. The original pick was Justin Crawford with Philly. Feel like it would be a little bit of a reach to go get Justin Crawford when there are other names that have gotten to the big leagues or shown better in the upper minors than Justin Crawford at this point, although Justin Crawford has yet to struggle in the minor
Yeah,
leagues. And
which is crazy. This is
he
just
was
me
good in
more
double A.
just being hesitant on the batted ball profile, but it's hard to argue the numbers. The guy put up a 130 WRC plus between high A and double A this
Yeah.
past year and put up a 140 in double A. Justin Crawford did 333, 380, 455 slash on. Like if you're just looking at the numbers, it's pretty wild what he's been able to do. Yeah, when it's 60% on the ground and not pulling anything in the air, it's hard to and chasing over 30%. I'm just waiting. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he keeps producing. He's an awesome dude too. I loved having him on the show. I haven't seen that batted ball profile succeed.
Yeah. I'm a little
So
nervous.
this is a tough one. So who are you leaning towards at this spot?
So there are a couple names that jump out to me, and they're all like guys that have gotten to the big leagues that did not show very well at all. And then you've got a guy that showed very well in AAA after showing very well in AA. It's four pitchers. For me, it's Drew Thorpe, Caden Dana, Thomas Harrington, and Zebby Matthews. I don't know who I like the most out of those four. I feel like I like, and like there might be some Aram infused bias coming in here, but I feel like Dana is fourth for me. That changeup is good for Thorpe. Like that changeup is a very good big league changeup for him. I just worry about the other pitches.
Yep.
For Harrington, are you too around the strike zone? Are you getting too much early contact where hits may pile up? Zebby Matthews, identical thing. Like maybe you should start walking guys. Like
Yeah, legit.
maybe you should nibble a little bit more.
Yeah.
So everybody has a tiny beige flag for me.
Well, and I can't believe I'm saying this though, but is that enough to just say, hey, why don't we take a shot on the 20-year-old who had a 130 WRC plus in the minor leagues last year with 40 bags and is the son of an all-star?
Yeah, you could very well. Like I'm absolutely in on entertaining
I
Justin
like, and
Crawford
I
here.
honestly wasn't even planning to go there, but like when you walk through that and you have pitchers with some beige flags, and then you have a hitter with some beige flags as well, but he is produced and he's 20. Like Zebby's 24. I,
Yeah,
I think I take the upside shot on a Justin Crawford and say, please start elevating.
sure. I had him way down. Like the other guys that we should think about here, where do you value Justin Crawford in relation to a Chandler Simpson or a Victor Scott?
Yeah, that's tough. I have him over Victor Scott. I think Chandler Simpson is an interesting conversation as well. Um, but I think just the power potential of a Justin Crawford may give him a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, but
But
Crawford's not swiping 80.
no,
Like, and
that's
they're
the thing.
both good defenders in center.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you have a better defender in Chandler Simpson. And people can talk about the raw power differential, like as I even just alluded to, but if you're hitting the ball on the ground at a 60% clip, like you hit 9 home runs, like
Yeah,
how much more power is he supplying than than even bottom of the barrel guys? I don't. It's tough, but if he
yeah.
does find any semblance of an ability to elevate, can easily hit 15 plus home runs, where that'll never happen with a Chandler Simpson.
No, he might hit one.
He might hit one. Yeah.
Okay,
Ah,
let's go Crawford at
go
17.
Crawford. Keep the pick.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. 18 is Cam Collier.
Not a
Reds
bad
to
pick.
Collier. I don't mind it whatsoever. Do you take Cam Collier over that clump of pitchers or Chandler Simpson? I don't think so.
I like Collier's bat. I think I love the mechanical adjustments he made. We talked about that and how
Yeah.
it unlocked a lot more for him in the second half of the season. But good chance he ends up at first base and just a lot of pressure on the bat there. I think you go with one of the arms or a Chandler Simpson. Um, I Thomas Harrington, man, like you talk about like maybe he's just around the zone too much, but when you've got that riding fastball where you can get whiff in the zone on it and the feel for everything that he's got going there,
Yeah.
he's a top 100 prospect for us. I could go Thomas Harrington there.
Over Thorpe, Dana, Zebby.
I think so.
Okay.
I think he's a more well-rounded pitcher. I think he kind of has a little bit more going for him compared to everybody else.
Yeah, I think so too, which is crazy because he's the one guy in that clump of four that hasn't made the big leagues yet. But he's also been immensely successful in the minor leagues. I think the ERA is sub 3 in his minor league career.
Yeah, I know we're gonna get roasted for the Kane and Dana thing for like people that are new here. But
Sure.
it's just it's the three his three pitches are too obviously discernible.
Mhm.
And you can look at it on a scatter plot, and that's why he really struggled at the big league level. Is like his arm angle changes with all three offerings. None of them really jump off the page stuff wise. He executed really well, and that's why he was
Yeah.
able to put up really good numbers in the Southern League, where the average OPS was like 600. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's going to be a good back end of the rotation starter. But I think the upside's a little bit limited. He's going to go in this range here. But if you're wondering
Yeah.
why he wasn't taken yet, like everyone's probably looking at his numbers and saying, "Well, this guy was dominant. He was good, but I don't see it translating to big league success as much."
Yeah. I totally hear you. So, yeah, let's go Harrington at 18. At 19, I feel like I want Chandler Simpson over Zebby, Thorpe, or Dana.
Yeah, I like that. I've just the more I watch this guy, the more I've fallen in love with his game. I
Yeah.
think you can start to have an Alex Freeland conversation here too.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, what do you value here? Um, Freeland had a really nice year though, and offensively he brings a lot to the table. Switch hitter, can sneak out. So I think at least average power. Can play
Gi-
shortstop.
Give me mid-level WAR. Like, okay, Alex Freeland has a fine season by his standards.
I think he's. I think he's
Two
a
and a half.
two. Yeah, two and a half guy.
What's Simpson's fine year?
Two and a half guy. uh,
Do you want a center fielder or do you want a middle infielder? Guy that'll split his time, right, between short and second.
he could probably play. It depends on
He
the
could
team, but
play short.
He could play a good shortstop. So
So if he can play a good shortstop, let's go with Freeland
with
then.
a little bit more power, and yeah, I like Freeland here.
Okay. So Freeland at 19. The original pick was Daniel Susac, the catcher out of Arizona. He went to Oakland. Susac, it hasn't wowed at all in the minor leagues to this point.
Yeah, Freeland.
Freeland or Simpson?
We'll go. We'll go Freeland.
Freeland.
Yeah,
Okay.
Susac he could be all right. It's just yeah, the power hasn't totally translated, and he's trying to hit for more average, and that's kind of hurt the power even more. It's tweener offensive profile.
Yeah. 20. The original pick was Owen Murphy, who looked really good at the beginning of the 2024 season and then went down, Tommy John surgery. I do think Murphy is a guy that, like, if the Braves did it over, they have zero qualms taking him again at 20 because they feel like he could blossom into that guy and he's still young. He's got plenty of time to bounce back from Tommy John surgery. He's just not going this high because there are other guys that were taken much later that have progressed much more than he has, and that's only a matter of circumstance.
Yeah, I mean he would have been a top 100 guy for us had he not gone down.
Yeah.
It's the low release, high carry, like Christian Javier type fastball that
Yeah.
is going to play, and then the secondaries came along and he saw his fastball tick up. So I mean, once he comes back from Tommy John, I definitely think he's a great candidate to get taken in this range. But so we did we go Simpson yet or no?
No, Freeland was 19, so we probably go Simpson at 20 before
Would you
that
rather have
clump of
Simpson or
pitchers.
Caden Dana?
I'd rather have Simpson.
Okay, let's go Simpson here then.
Okay, so that was 20. And now we get to 21. The original pick at 21 was Cole Young, and Cole Young is gone at
Great
this
pick.
point. Yeah, great pick by Seattle. Now I think we get to that clump of pitchers Thorpe, Dana, Zebby. The other guys that jump out to me Ryan Clifford is a name that we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah.
And here's my closer bias. Here's me valuing a lot of closers. I think Orion Kerkering is going to throw the ninth inning for a while, man. And that sweeper, that slider that he has is disgusting. But you probably take the starter that's going to give you 150 innings in Zebby or Dana or Thorpe over a closer.
I'd lean Dana over Zebby just because Zebby had this like breakout, right? And everything really came together for him this past year at 24.
Yeah,
And Dana is still so young that like he's 21 years old and he can continue to dig into more and find more and piece together the things that have been a little bit of a concern.
yeah,
Um, I think Dana Kirkring I do think is starting to be in that range now with how nasty he is and what
yeah,
he's already shown he can do at the big league level. But I think Dana has a great chance of at least being an innings eater with the body and everything as well too and the mechanics. Aside from the release point variation, like it is smooth watching him, deliver the ball.
yeah. The other names are Tamar Johnson, Jacob Melton. Do you entertain any of those? Zach DeZenzo?
Not yet. Gary Gill Hill as well could probably be a
Yeah.
consideration, but
Yeah.
no, I don't think not yet.
Okay. So Dana went at 21. The original pick at 22 by St. Louis was Cooper Jerpy. Jerpy has been good in the minor leagues, but he hasn't pitched. Like this year, 15 starts, spanned 52 innings, and out of absolutely nowhere, he walked 28
Yeah,
in
very weird.
52 innings. No clue where that came from. He had a 3.27 ERA, and for the most part, he was in high A. He got to double at the end of the year, but like he just hasn't like thrown enough, man. It's 2 years of minor league baseball. He's thrown 93 combined innings, so he's not going in these 30, but it might be a fine pick for St. Louis. I have no idea how that's
Yeah,
going to work out.
despite the lack of velo, ton of in zone whiff because of how funky the angles are that he
Yeah, it's
creates.
weird.
And yeah, if he can stay available, like he's definitely an intriguing arm. It's just that, and then I think the injuries resulting in some command issues have been a challenge for him.
Yep. All right. Dana's off the board. Harrington off the board. It's Zebby, Thorpe, Kirkring, Ryan Clifford, Jacob Melton, Tamar Johnson, Victor
Demetrio
Scott,
Chrysantis.
Demetrio Chrysantis, Chase Mydroth, Luke Adams. Hayden Birdsong is available as well.
I like Chrysantis. I mean, he's a guy that also made it into our top 100 at the 99 spot, so he's definitely a consideration there. I think
Yeah.
Chase Hampton is still a guy like coming off of TJ, obviously, but I mean, his stuff is crazy
Yeah.
with the Yankees. Like Chase Hampton is absolutely a candidate. I mean, I like. I think Chase Hampton can also be considered here too, just because he has
Yeah.
number two starter upside, or like at least through
Right.
number three starter upside, and
Right.
he's just coming off of TJ.
Yeah. Would you take Hampton over Thorpe,
Yeah,
Zebby, Jonathan Cannon? Cannon's also a name.
yes, for sure. I think Hampton's going to be really good when he
Okay.
comes back.
All right. So you take Hampton. Would you take Hampton over Dana or no?
That's a good question.
Like we can adjust in hindsight because Dana went 21.
I mean, I think yeah, I would take Hampton over Dana.
Would you take Hampton over Chandler Simpson? Probably not for me.
Not yet, no, but I would go Hampton over Dana.
Okay. So
The
Dana
stuff's
just
going to
got dropped
translate
from
better.
21 to 22.
Yeah.
Chase Hampton just went at 21.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Dana went 22. Hampton went 21. 23, the original pick, Toronto, was Brandon Barrera. Not healthy.
Just not healthy. They
So,
then they had him put on weight. That didn't work. Now they have him take off weight. I don't know what the Blue Jays are doing.
no
Um,
idea.
yeah, it's unfortunate. I hope he can get healthy.
Yeah.
Kirkring at a
Um,
2.29.
yeah. Kirkring was gross. Kirkring was an all-star caliber reliever. You're not entertaining Ryan Clifford yet? What about a Drew Gilbert?
Clifford, I think I'm probably entertaining here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Clifford might be the pick here. 20 years old, doing what he did last year. The swing and miss is a little bit of a concern, but if we took Xavier Isaac, I think we got to take Clifford here.
Ryan Clifford. Yeah, we took Isaac at 16, so Clifford goes at 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. 24, the original pick was Mikey Romero by Boston. I haven't checked in on that guy at all. Is he around?
Yeah, he's around. I think he actually had like a better year for his standards, but I think a lot of the underlying stuff was not pointing towards it being sustainable, but he actually had a nice year. I don't know if the underlying stuff is gonna validate that, but he did have a 127 WRC plus 16 homers between high A and double A.
Okay, pop off Mikey Romero.
Yep.
Damn, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Um, I think Luke Adams is an interesting name here. Melton, Tamar Johnson. Like, is this where Tamar goes?
Or is this where Kirkering goes?
Oh, this might be where Kirkring goes. You're taking Kirkring over Thorpe and Zebby,
Thorpe is a tough player for me to figure out now because I really do like. I mean, the changeup is crazy, but
but nothing else is.
I'm kind of concerned about everything else. It did not play nearly as well as I had hoped, but the floor still seems high for a Thorpe. Like that changeup is just so good.
Yeah.
I think I'd wait a little bit though on Thorpe. 25 Ks and 44 and a third innings is
Yeah,
crazy.
really not great.
Really not good.
I'm all
Uh,
about Kirkring. If you want Kirkring here, I'm all about it.
I like Kirkring. I mean, he could be one of the best relievers in baseball. Talk about
I
a
think so.
potential 80 grade slider. That might be it.
I think so. Like borderline 80 grade slider, and then he's throwing 99 to 100 miles an hour. Like,
And
sure, man.
when we did we just take Clifford?
We just took Clifford.
Okay, yeah. So I would go Kirkring.
Okay. 25 now, home stretch. Spencer Jones was the original pick by the Yankees.
Not
Maybe,
bad. Yeah, like he's not out of complete consideration here. It's just way too much swing and miss.
yeah. Would you take, like, the next clump is Victor Scott, Jace Young, Cam Collier, Termar. DeZenzo,
Birdsong.
Birdsong, Cannon.
How much do you buy into what Birdsong did last year?
I love the changeup. I worry about other things.
He sits 96 though.
I know.
Curveball played well.
Chrysantis is still available.
I think it's Chrysantis or Birdsong. I I think Birdsong then Chrysantis.
I like Birdsong a lot. I
Yeah.
do. I think that changeup, like opponents are going to hit.
And
I'll call it right now 150. Like
yeah,
it's from that slot. It's weird.
yeah. And once he found that, it really seemed to make a difference for him.
Yeah.
So I like Birdsong and
Okay.
then Chrysantis.
Chrysantis at 26. The original pick at 26 was Noah Schultz. Hit it out of the park. Damn. 27, Milwaukee took Eric Brown Jr. Obviously, you like the defensive ability, but offensively, the production has
Tough year
just
for him.
left a little bit. Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit to be desired there.
Yeah, it's a really disappointing year for him because I liked a lot of what I saw. Just I don't know what if he was banged up or whatever it may have been, but it just was not a good year, unfortunately. So hopefully he bounces back. But yeah, you get the defensive ability and the speed that hopefully can help.
Yeah.
Uh, I think you could consider a few different guys here, but where are you leaning?
So Cannon is a name that interests me. Collier, Melton, and Termar are also names that interest me here. I don't know how to truly feel about Jonathan Cannon, who's probably going to start on opening day for the White Sox. Cannon flashed some big league starter stuff last year, and it's whippy and it can get a lot of guys out. But Termar could turn into that three true outcome second baseman. You mentioned like a more athletic Max Muncy.
Yeah,
That intrigues me here. And
I
I think
think
it
you
intrigues me more than Collier and
I
Milton.
think you take a shot on that bat speed and that approach. I agree, and go with Tamar.
Okay. So Termar at 27. 28, Houston took Drew Gilbert.
It's not a bad pick. We could almost stick with it here. I think he's a tweener profile though too, right? Like if it's not a good center field, he's kind of stuck in a corner now,
Yeah.
and the hit is maybe average or a little better. The power is maybe average. I just I don't know. Like I think it's a well-rounded game where like there's not a clear deficiency,
Yeah.
but there's not really a strength either.
No.
So I'd rather go for either a back end of the rotation arm or take a shot on an Owen Murphy or a Gary Gill Hill.
Yeah.
Like we might need to give you some Gary Gill Hill love here.
You think so? Okay. Gary Gilhill, Owen Murphy, and Zebby Matthews is still available along with
Yeah.
her.
Gary Gill Hill had a 3.15 and 108 and two thirds innings in low A for the Rays. Doesn't walk anybody.
Yeah. And the K numbers were decent, right?
They're fine. Struck out 105 and 108 and two thirds innings, but above average ground ball rate. Then you have, but Zebby, I mean, is like, you figure
Zebby
he's
might
going to
just,
tweak something and find. I think Zebby. I think Zebby. Like, I think I'm getting a little bit jaded from the big league struggles. He still struck out guys. Like,
yeah,
he was around the zone too much.
too much. Way too much.
So you think Zebby's the pick?
I think Zebby's the pick at 28.
Okay. I like it.
29, I could see Gary Gilhill, and this is Tampa, and they took Xavier Isaac here, who's already off the board.
Great pick.
Great pick.
DeZenzo,
DeZenzo.
but older, and a little bit more limited defensively. But I do really like what DeZenzo has done offensively.
Yeah. How do you value Jordan Beck?
Man, I didn't
Not.
love him as much as a prospect. Like I had some concern about the batted ball profile, and then we saw him struggle at the big league level. And as a corner
Yeah.
outfielder, it got to really hit. I hope it works out for him, but I'm a little bit lower on him. I think I'd rather take a DeZenzo or some of these other guys, or even a Melton
Does
potentially.
so who do you value higher? Because they are same farm, Melton or DeZenzo? Probably Melton.
Melton, I would say, just off the upside. He hits the ball so freaking hard and he flies. It's just, can he hit it in the air more consistently?
Yeah.
Is the big question.
So Melton or Gary Gilhill?
I'd go Melton.
Okay. Melton at 29. And then the final pick, 30, Reggie Crawford went to San Francisco. It's a loaded conversation, but I think it's a decent pick if they get a leverage reliever out of it. And I think that they will when he does come back from injury.
I mean, he could be a fantastic leverage reliever. It's just, yeah, it's can he stay healthy? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the answer's been no.
And I will say, like, is that frame going to play? He's gargantuan. He's a huge human.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know
he's
how
almost too
well that
strong.
plays on a mound.
He's almost too strong. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah. So
Gary Gill Hill, Spencer Jones,
Cam Collier, Owen Murphy,
DeZenzo,
Jace Young,
Maydroth.
Victor Scott. Man,
And even
there's
Owen
a lot.
Murphy, like he did some good things, man.
Yeah.
Someone's got to get left in the chopping block, but
Bunch of guys.
I think Gary Gill Hill here, off of what he
Cool.
did at 19, 20 years old.
I'm cool with that. At 30, why not? We haven't given Gary Hill enough love on this
No, he was
program, so
19 this past year and did what he did.
we might as well do it.
Yep.
Guys that were left on the chopping block on my big board: Drew Thorpe, um, Victor Scott,
Sal Stewart.
yep, Spencer Jones, Jace Young, Drew Gilbert, Owen Murphy, Cam Collier, Jordan Beck, Zach DeZenzo, Luke Adams, Chase Mydroth, Tyler Locklear, Jonathan Cannon, Adam Major, Nacho Alvarez.
Well, a lot of talent still, man. Like there's a lot of guys. I even think like Mason Barnett, like I said earlier, is not
Hmm.
that far off from this conversation. Even an Alan Roden could be a guy that's in this conversation sooner rather than later. There's a lot of fun players, and we're still like waiting to get clarity on so many guys. I think if we did this draft maybe a year ago, maybe a Graham Pauly goes, but now
Yeah,
he's not even in consideration. Like it's wild how fluid these things can be.
it's wild, man. But no, this was fun. I like this one because it's like, okay, how do you value a guy that has like gotten to the big leagues and has been underwhelming versus a guy we talked about in the lower levels?
Even like a Blake Berhalter, like that's
Yeah,
a guy you like, right? Like it's not even remotely being considered here because there's so many prospects that we're waiting to figure more out on. So it's exciting. Like I'm curious to see what Adam Major does this year, who may end up having a rotation spot for the Marlins with the way guys are going down. J.R. Ritchie is
yep.
not far off from being a potential top 100 prospect. Uh, did did we even talk about Robbie Snelling?
No, we didn't talk about Snelling, but Snelling's 24 probably knocked him off, right?
Yeah, would you rather have Robbie Snelling or Gary Gilhill? Probably Gary Gilhill at this point.
I think so.
But Robbie Snelling's finish again, he has him right in that conversation again now too. I do think the
Yeah,
24 knocked him off, but like what he did with the Marlins started to look a lot more like Robbie Snelling again. So that could easily be a guy that if we check in mid-season is in this top 30 as well too when we redraft. So it's a really interesting conversation that's super fluid. So if you
yeah,
disagree, you're you have every right to because it'll probably change and your own opinion. You might disagree with yourself in 6 months. So that's the
exactly.
beautiful thing about these things. But yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments where you would have went different, how you would have went about it, because it'll probably change by the time we get to May. But
Yeah,
it's always a lot of fun to kind of give you an idea of where we're at now on a lot of these guys, look back at the draft and see how it all looks. For next week, we get an interview with Peyton Eels.
yep.
Twins prospect, very excited to talk to him. We were just talking last episode, like, oh man, can we get him on here? Jack made that happen. Mover and a shaker.
Why
So I'm
not?
looking forward to that. It's going to be really cool to just talk to him about his story. And then we'll have another team farm system, hopefully, to wrap up the week next week. Any final thoughts, Jack?
I don't think so. This was, I feel like we were kind of all over the place, but like you have to be all over the place for a 22 redraft,
You
especially
have
with,
to.
with
There's
this
too many names.
huge, yeah, it way too many names, but that's a good problem to have.
Yep. Let us know again in the comments who you would have picked or tweet at us, whatever it may be. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the playoff and just enjoy the wonderful weather if you're in Florida. Everywhere else, it's absolutely freezing. And if you're on the
Terrible.
West Coast, California, stay safe from the fires. Crazy stuff over there too. So hopefully you all are safe out there. Talk to you guys next week.